From the studio of your mom's basement comes a podcast by two idiots in a revolving door of legends and has-beens from the oldest university in Texas. This is Purple, Gold, and Getting Old.
So I guess the line between pranks and assault is, does it make you laugh? And that's a very fine line, because pranks can pretty much be assault if you think about it in certain circumstances.
So,
but if it makes you laugh, it's like,
Does that mean we can say whatever we want on this podcast? As long as we're laughing, it's not libel or slander.
I think that's like the Ricky Bobby. I said it with all due respect.
With all due respect.
So while at UMHB, what was one of the best pranks you were involved in, either doing to others or having done to you?
We, as you know, we do follow the golden rule as believers and alumni of UMHB.
Like a good school should.
Absolutely. Well, the greatest prank we ever pulled is actually one we're saving for another episode, so we'll keep the suspense for our listeners. I will give you I will give you the name of the best prank ever pulled, which we are hoping to have on the next episode, which is called Operation Paper Flood. The best prank that never quite happened, that was extensively planned, was one called Operation Fire and Flames, which had nothing to do with fire, but we'd been listening to a lot of Dragon Force and playing Guitar Hero while we planned it. And that prank was to capture a bunch of birds on the roof of Getty's, because you could jimmy the screen door open. And we had the traps ready. You could capture all these birds. And we had this guy's apartment we were going to go into. We figured out they never left it locked. And so we were going to go in there, cover his roommate's stuff so that he was the target. And we were going to put out plates of bird seed and laxatives. And we were going to have all these bagged birds we'd caught and just release them into the abyss of his room and get out.
Incredible. I love it.
Pretend it happened. It makes it a better story.
Yeah, I get you. I've told stories like that before where I almost did something. Well, I'll just tell them like I did it.
This buzzkill brought to you by Topo Chico, which you can't see on my screen.
That's right.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Unplanned.
Exactly.
Please don't flag us, YouTube. That's not a paid sponsor.
I wish it was. I got prank started really quickly in my days at UMHB. Freshman year, I had a roommate, and I was really obnoxious to that guy.
You were obnoxious to somebody?
Yeah. I thought it was hilarious. So I had another friend who dated this roommate, and at UMHB, we're a Baptist school and Christian, and everyone is very strict with their rules about boys and girls, except not everybody. My roommate being one of them. And so you would have once a month these hourly visitations. Is that
Thank you, Jeff Payne.
Is that Jeff Payne's?
I wrote the bill. Jeff presented the bill to tend to push the bill.
Got it.
And it
no,
happened.
I just started joking. Visitation sounds like something you do in prison.
Only if you lived in Stribling.
Yeah. So there would be these once a month times where you could bring in someone of the other gender into your dorm room to hang out. And so this was the time when my roommate wanted some alone time with my other friend, and being the good Christian studies major that I was, I disapproved of what might be going on in there. Shenanigans, we'll call it. But I was also a prankster at heart. And so I said, yeah, I'll give you your space. I'll be gone. And then I kept coming back into the room pretending I forgot things. And he kept getting progressively madder, and my smirk got progressively bigger until his girlfriend realized what I was doing and actually thought it was hilarious too, which made him even more mad. So that was just sort of the dynamic of our relationship. But at one point, I was really influenced by The Office. So I took his cell phone and put it in a ceiling tile above his bed and just watched him rage out. Could not find it. And I had never lost a prank war. And in fact, I want to say this is the only prank where I have ever lost. I thought I will go to whatever extent. And so things progressively started, I do one thing, he'd do another. I can't remember all of them, but I do how it ended, because he sure ended it. I walked into my dorm room and I noticed my mattress was not on my bed. and I noticed some of my things were gone. And then I noticed literally all of my things were gone. All of the drawers, my mattress, my pillow, my sheets, my blankets, my bathroom stuff, every single thing that I had in that dorm was gone. Could not find it. And I didn't drive much on campus because, everything's just right there. But about a day later, I realized, because I had to give up to get my stuff back, and I wouldn't do it. So I'd tried sleeping on just the bed slats of the wood of those little dorm beds. And then I realized my Land Rover was gone. So everything was gone. I think I gave up after 3 days of not having stuff, maybe 2 days. I don't know. It was a long time to not have anything other than the shirt on your back. And apparently all of my stuff was in my Land Rover parked on the other side of campus. And that's when I just finally gave up and said, I need my stuff. He had won and I had been defeated. So sad day for me. Yeah. So it sounds like we've got some guests that are coming on that have a pretty epic prank war themselves.
Yeah. And kind of to give the audience a scope here, because, we're new. We don't really know what range of class years or ages are listening to this. So these guys were involved with a prank war that went on for about 2 years. I became a freshman halfway through it. And what people don't realize is it kind of branched off because these guys all lived in a dorm together. They all pranked each other. Then these guys moved off campus and they still had a prank war with the guys who lived on campus. Well, when the guys on campus couldn't go off campus or couldn't figure out when they were at their house, they just started pranking each other. So it kind of just branched into this whole, we disrupted the timeline and created all these side timelines of prank wars. And, you got to be careful about name dropping on this thing. I had these two neighbors. I'm going to name drop Ryan Brack and Joseph Cantu. If you're out there, hope you're doing well. These guys, it got ridiculous. So one night I spent about 3 hours doing homework into the late night. It's dead quiet. Lights are out. My roommate's asleep. So at the end of that 3 hours, I go to the bathroom, I go to bed. And as I'm getting into my bed, a hand reaches out from under my bed and grabs my ankle and starts to pull me down to the depths of my bed. Brack had waited 3 hours for me to finish my homework just to do that. So he got sick a few nights later. I crept in their room and I put a bucket of water by their bed and took a cap gun and just started firing it off out next to his head. So he jumps out of bed and just splashes. I help him clean it up. But what I didn't tell him was I put another tub there. So the next morning, our alarm goes off, and me and my roommate, we kind of listen to the wall, and we hear their alarm go off. And the next thing we hear is a splash and a bunch of cussing. And I think what ended it was after the two of them waited while I was in the shower, jumped out and poured cold water on me with water guns, or shot me with cold water. I decided to bust in with an aerosol can and a lighter, and I just kind of flamed through their room. I guess it's been a decade. I can tell people that I almost burned McLean down. And I think that effectively ended it. But even then, there were all these side things going on. And so the guys we're bringing on today were known around campus as the Hall of Justice guys. And we are going to bring them on now. I will let them tell you their names, but welcome the Hall of Justice. Recording, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome reunited on this podcast, the men of the Hall of Justice. Gentlemen, how y'all doing?
Lovely. Happy to be here.
Yeah, doing well.
I asked them how they're doing, like I haven't spent the last 10 minutes talking to them. We've been having a good time without our audience already. I'm going to go counterclockwise based on who's on my screen. Dustin, let's start with you. Just got to tell us when you went to school at UMHB and what you've been up to now.
I went to school, 2003 to 2007. Is that right? Yeah, I graduated in 7. Since then, I've done about 3 different careers. Is that about right, guys?
At least.
Sounds about right.
Are we counting the military?
Yeah, we can count that. Yeah, I left UMHB and went to Iraq with the Marines, which you'd be surprised how absolutely similar. The language, the attitude of the people, just all very much the same. I came back. I did seminary at Baylor at Truett, and then worked in nonprofit for like 8 years. And now I'm in school to give people drugs, but prescription ones. So I'm studying to be a PA, so I can do that legally now.
So how's the illegal side going? I mean, that sounds intriguing.
I don't know. I have a medical license to worry about. Can't answer that
Far more
question.
lucrative.
Stop recording and we can talk.
Yeah, there you go. Patrick, go for it.
Yeah. Patrick McDonald, went to UMHB, took 5 years. So it was 05 to 2010. Let's see, live in Dallas now, work in a medical lab of all places. Just kind of been in service industry, but nothing too technical.
Also drugs, or are you supplying Dustin? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I'll talk about that later. But no, doing medical lab stuff, nothing too technical, not like running instruments or anything, nothing like a PA school or anything, but more like answering phone calls for doctors, and they ask questions about us, like, do you perform this test? And like, I call someone else and say, do we run that? So simple stuff like that. So I'm doing that. I'm taking classes online as well to be a teacher. I'm getting teaching certification. So it's very slow. I'm imagining it might be done in the fall sometime, but just kind of want to have something to do in the long run, long term.
Ooh. And a fun fact for our listeners, Patrick was my roommate my sophomore year.
It was blast.
Yeah. Todd.
My name is Todd Hartman, and I went to UMHB 2003 to 2008. Also did the Victory Lap. I've been in Austin ever since graduating. I've been in the concert industry. I did a little stint in ministry on the side for a while, and I'm back in the concert industry again.
Tim Nation from College Station.
Haven't heard that in a long time.
I thought you might not have.
Oh, boy.
Tim Nation. I was at UMHB from 2005 to 2010-ish. I'm the only one that didn't actually walk away with a degree, just a whole lot of debt. I'm actually 4 hours away from a degree. That's a absurd story, but yeah, there was no reason to ever really finish a ministry degree when that wasn't going to end up going that direction. Ever since I moved up to Dallas, got a job at a software company, and then switched over from customer support over to sales pretty quick. Figured out that I'm really good at talking to people and monetized that, and was more or less miserable for about 15, however long it's been since we were in school, like 11 years or 12 years. But I made a stupid amount of money, got married and had a couple kids. And so the mortgage kind of boxed me into that. And then COVID rescued me by getting me laid off. And a buddy of mine said, what's it going to take for you to not interview places and come run a restaurant for me? So he more or less just pays my basic bills, and I run a really popular high-end Greek restaurant now in Rockwall. So that's what I do.
We should have toga partied this instead of Zoom. Just go up to Rockwall, go to the Greek place, chow down in person.
Not opposed.
Dude, I may just show up unannounced, do that. Tell
Please
them I
do.
know you. So we know now when y'all were at UMHB. So the big question, how'd everybody meet? Because I know like a lot of y'all were in McLean Hall as freshmen. You ended up at a house called the Hall of Justice, and we'll get to that too because I drove by it 2 days ago. But yeah, take me through that walkthrough.
So the way I met everyone, and maybe I don't quite remember Todd around as much. Maybe I don't know where he got plugged into, but the way I met everyone was through Campus Boys. I think everyone came to Campus Boys. I met them one by one through there. I think I may have met Todd just randomly at the house and just accepted him as a part of it. But that's how I remember Todd, at least. But everyone else was through Campus Boys.
Dustin and I
There's still a
met
thing.
all of 03 there as well.
Okay.
So I think that was the first introduction. And then Tim, I think we met on the way to a Reliant K concert.
Yep. I knew you through Stuart and all those guys. So I was kind of the connector to a lot of different people. Yeah. So I met Zach and Travis and Asa through McLean, just meeting people there and all that. And then in our probably welcome week, we all started hanging out. And I also was friends with a guy named Stuart, who was buddies and roommates with Todd. And so those were the two groups that I hung out with, was the crew that all knew each other from Austin, whom Dustin was like their older friend who went to UMHB. So like Dustin was like the elder statesman of that group, and he like kind of ran things. And so I would hang out with them, and then I would also hang out with these other guys that were a year older, of whom Todd was a part of the group. And so Todd and I started playing music together, and then that's how that got all connected in.
When you say Stuart, are we talking about the Stuart who's a journalism major who may or may not have helped start up an illegal fraternity on campus? Because if so, that is probably going to be episode 4 of this podcast.
Allegedly.
Yeah, we've got Alpha Beta Zeta in the works, so be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, I'm not at liberty to speak about anything that Stuart may or may not have done, because there's an equal or possibly more amount of things that we need to check on statute of limitations for.
Can you still be put on double secret probation?
Okay.
Yeah, I've known Asa, Zach, and subsequently Zach and Trav since 99, 2000, something like that. We grew up in roughly the same city. And then I was at MHB a year before them, obviously. And I did meet most of the other folks through Campus Boys. I think my sophomore year, I was helping out with leadership with that. So it was a great method of connection and involved with BSM and those kinds of things. So you meet people.
And I'm just let the audience. So Zach and Travis may actually pop in at any given moment. We're not really sure. So
Zach's message said he can't make it.
Darn. Well, I actually met all these guys. I met Patrick as a preview student because he stole everyone's mattress on our hall, got the RA's key, and we didn't know where our beds were. And at the end of the night, we found out it was Patrick. Then later we ended up being roommates. Met Tim and Dustin and pretty much everyone mentioned there through our friend Robin. She's like, hey, you need to come hang out with these guys. They're watching a football game tonight. I was like, cool. And I remember that me being an A&M fan and Dustin being a Texas fan, A&M was playing Oklahoma that night. So we were kind of bonded by this common enemy in front of the TV. And and then I was in crew nights with Zach and Travis. So it's kind of like, just like y'all's stories, one thing kind of led to the other. But when y'all were in McLean, I know pranks were a big thing, and that kind of continued for a while. And one thing we alluded to in the intro of the episode was there was just kind of this prank war that went back and forth between all these people. And me, not having been there for the first year of that, am opening the floor for best prank stories that you guys can come up with.
Well, I'll jump in and say we didn't call them pranks. They were officially known, as far as we were concerned, as shenanigans. And the shenanigans, there would be a text that would go out that would say shenanigans are afoot, and people would just come. Like, there would be no discussion. It would just happen. And yeah, we
sometimes
actually
it's just one word.
Yeah, shenanigans. Yep. And yeah, stuff would just happen. And everybody sort of had their own little role to play, which is one of the biggest reasons I'm super bummed that Zach's not here, because he was more or less like
lighter fluid.
What's that?
Started everything.
Yeah, like Zach would never come up with anything, but we would just get Zach to do stuff.
Always. I mean, like, Zach is, even if he wasn't the spark at that point, like, you can throw a spark at charcoal, it's not doing anything. But like, you put lighter fluid on it, like, a small spark, like, something bad is going to happen. And that's kind of the role that Zach plays in the world.
So here's my favorite story whenever I'm telling people about our group and giving people an understanding of who Zach was. I used to say that I always say that Zach was, he was an only child. And so he liked to keep his group very small. He liked us, and he decided pretty early on in freshman year that everybody other than us, he didn't like. So he just liked us, and everybody else, he could go to hell. And he would be a very loyal, excited lab puppy. That's basically who Zach was. Very rambunctious, very messy, very dangerous, but very loyal. And so a great example of that was when we first moved into the Hall of Justice. And Dustin, you're in the middle of this story. Asa and I were in the living room. Asa and I were in the living room watching TV one night, and Katie Potts and I think Alicia were over at our house, and they were flirting with Dustin, and they took a stuffed dog, was it? And took off.
Yep.
And
Yep,
took
it was
off
a dog.
and jumped into Katie Potts's car. And this stuffed dog was apparently a dog that Dustin had had since he was a child, and Dustin's got a thing about specific items that he's really connected to.
No,
So,
this was a more recent acquisition.
Yeah. Okay.
Until my dog, I only become attached to inanimate objects because in college I was psychosocially and emotionally unavailable.
Sure.
So I had to attach to something.
So these girls were flirting with Dustin and grabbed that dog and ran and thought that it was really cute and funny. And it was like 40 degrees outside. And another part of the story is Zach always was never completely naked, but was always the most naked. So whatever anybody else was, he was more naked than that. And almost always he just lived his life in basketball shorts, and that was pretty much it.
I think Todd was the most naked.
Todd took it as a challenge.
Only in
Todd would be the most naked. Yes.
only when we didn't run the air conditioner.
Right. But Zach,
but this was February in this story, so Zach was the most naked.
So Zach was wearing basketball shorts only, and he was hanging out in his room, which was at the back of the house. And so the girls took off with the dog and jump in their car, and I just hear Dustin scream, "Zach, they got the dog!" And Zach has no idea what we're talking about. He has no idea if this is an actual dog. He has no idea if this is a toy. But Zach couldn't care less. And Zach runs from his room, and we just hear dunk, 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 dunk of him sprinting down the hall and slamming into the front door and out the front door. The girls have gotten into the car, and he's now jumped on top of their car. So he's on top of their car, riding it, and they're like, "We're going to drive off." And he's like, "You better not. You better not." And
this is a Explorer, I think. So not a like
kind of
short
SUV
car.
Yeah.
Like it's. He
And
hopped on the roof of the car.
So as they start to slowly move down the road, and Zach now gets down in like a 3-point stance to like hold on to the car, but he can't like get down on it because it's freezing, and the top of the car is freezing, and so he shouts at them, "If you don't stop, I'm gonna piss on the car." And they say whatever, and so he's Zach, so he goes ahead and 3-point stance, pulls his shorts down and pees on the top of their car. They hear that on the top of their car and stop, which causes the urine to run down the front of the car and into the vents. At this time, Todd has been summoned and has got Todd and somebody else and has boxed in their car. So they stopped, and so Todd and somebody else like had boxed in their car, and so they can't now move, and their car is now smelling significantly of urine, and they start negotiating to try to get the dog. And the girls are being tough about it. And Todd says, "If you don't give us the car or the dog, I'm going to let the air out of your tires." And before they can really say anything, and this is a great example too of where things would eventually lead to. We always said that Todd doesn't understand escalation. Todd begins at escalation. So Todd just takes a key and immediately goes into the air on the tires. And starts letting out the air on the tires. Meanwhile, Dustin and I are just hanging out in the living room watching TV. And so eventually the girls give the dog back, and they just walk back and leave the girls down the street stranded. And all of our phones get lit up. Zach walks in and just tosses the dog to Dustin and walks back to his room and says nothing. And all of our phones light up from these girls blowing up our phones, and we refuse to answer until Asa walks through and just judges us and goes and fixes things for them. And that's pretty well how shenanigans happened and who Zach was in the mix.
I've heard a very abbreviated version of that story and had no idea all that unfolded.
Yeah. That was the last time Katie ever came over.
Eventually we had one car in front of them, one car behind them so they couldn't move, Zach remaining on top of the car in the cold, and Todd letting the air out. And at some point they tried to negotiate for us to like helped him go with one of his tires, which like there was no bargaining chip at this point.
Yeah, who holds all the cards? Not you.
Yeah, we all eventually all came back at once, and then Asa left to go make it better. Yeah, we knew he would help them out.
There was another good one that involved Audrey and Robin, where I think it was a few different like back and forth, like, and this was gradual escalation, like by the purest definition of it. There were multiple rounds before it got to this point, but at one point we ended up taking I think your brother helped with this one, Tim. We ended up taking both their cars and completely mummifying them in Crisco.
Oh, yeah. Yep, that's a thing.
Picking up, I forgot how many people it took, but we took Audrey's car, picked it up, and set it like drunkenly staggered across the curb at Burt, where she was an RA.
Was this around 2007? Probably. I heard about that.
We did something similar where we picked up Jen's little Miata and moved it like an entire neighborhood over.
Do you guys remember the one with, and Dawson was, I think, the one on whom we were seeking retribution for?
You talking about the flower door?
This would have been the wall of flour. Yes. I forgot who the girls were. They were in the new Tryon 2 apartments. I just remember they were both nurses.
Yep.
Yeah, they had to get up super early in the morning, so which meant they went to bed super early. And something that they did to Dawson that had Dawson summon us for help. And we ended up basically making a encasing of...
He said, he asked us, and I quote, "End this war." He said, "End it." He said, "We've been going back and forth. I need you guys to end it." We said,
"Oh gosh."
All right.
So this was basically took saran wrap, covered the inside of the door frame, filled it about chest high with flour. When it started to give way under its own weight, we went to the landscaping outside and relieved them of all their limestone bricks and built a wall around it and used, what was it, Tim? Was it like flour and eggs? And we made a makeshift mortar.
Yep.
To fit all of these bricks together, which would then hold up the saran wrap and then the wall of flour under its own weight.
Shocking amount of flour. Like it was.
I don't actually know where we got all this flour from.
Walmart. Like we kept going back to Walmart because we kept needing more flour.
This was a lot of flour. So
the idea,
of course,
yeah, when they opened the door, there's a wall of flour that fell on top of them when they got up for the early morning nurse shift.
Oh gosh, I never heard that one.
It was a horrible thing to do to people that we didn't know.
I think that makes it 10 times better of a story.
But this was kind of the degree of loyalty, though. Like, we didn't ask questions. It was hey, one of our friends needs our help. We're going to hurt some people, but you know what? We got to take care of business.
Dawson's one of those people, too. You can tell if he's serious and he's like, just put a stop to something. It's kind of like, let's put a stop to something.
Yep.
And I think this was actually the night he came into Zach's room. We were all in there watching some YouTube video or something. He came into Zach's room screaming, "Hussies!"
Yep, that's probably about right. I remember that night was fun because we got like a big whiteboard and we were like coming up with ideas and like drawing schematics and all kinds of stuff like that. There was always the nuclear plan that we had in the back pocket of changing the ecosystem of Temple Belton by we had priced out buying like 10,000 ladybugs and having them shipped to us and then like putting those in somebody's drawer or something like that, and that would have like legitimately shifted ecosystem
It was the nuke we never pulled though. Like, because you can basically purchase them cryo frozen, and they'll ship to you in a block. And as they slowly thaw, they wake up and disperse. So they come in this like brick of 10,000 ladybugs.
Wow.
And that was always kind of like that was the red switch that like it had to get bad to pull that card. But at the back of our minds, we all kind of knew like, this is where we have to go if it gets there.
Patrick, you may remember, we kind of had one like that never went through, involving capturing birds on the Getty's roof to put in somebody's apartment. We never went through with it, but it was a pretty solid plan, but it was just kind of not worth it in the end. But I'm gonna save that for a different episode. All right, so the way I kind of understand it, is like when you guys all moved to the house, there was still like people who were involved with these shenanigans still in McLean. And I know Patrick and I spent a lot of time with them, like John Gross, Josh Hobrosh, that whole crowd. And what ended up kind of happening over time was if they didn't want to go prank anyone like at the Hall of Justice house or something, it was kind of like, well, let's just get people in McLean. So you guys geographically left the battlefield in that location, but it branched into a lot of others. And I'm going to try to get those guys on to talk about some of those pranks, because that one kind of came to a head, I think, with the Operation Paper Flood, which will be told another time. But Patrick was very much a part of that with us. And what I feel like it was the kind of like end all for the crossover between McLean at the time and the Hall of Justice was the death of T-Petey. And I was confused because I didn't hear about it when it happened. And usually I was one of the first people to either be the victim of or hear about this stuff or be the person that did it. So on this thing, I saw this Facebook event pop up for like a funeral for T-Petey, and I had no clue what I was looking at. So take me through y'all's side of that, because I have a very limited kind of came in at the end perspective of that story.
First off, Trevor was a saint and a family man, and I think we need to honor and respect and recognize that. I will give you the first part of the chronology. I think it was the day of formal, probably. Because some of us were headed out of town for, we were going down to play an ultimate tournament in Georgetown and then go down to formal that night, which is what you can do when your body is 20-ish years old, right? And we walked out of the house and there was toilet paper everywhere. I mean, it was a good job, like it was well done. And so I shouted into the house, and of course, Zach is the first one out the door, which is easy when you don't have to get dressed, because dressed is not a thing that you do. And he came out and looked, and as we are standing there, I don't remember who else is out the house at this point, but as we're standing there, Trevor falls from a tree, dead.
As Zach tells it, he heaves several times.
Yeah.
You'll thump like a breathe, damn you, breathe.
So there's a funeral for him, of course. I saw like a bunch, like people were invited to that or something.
Okay, so
for the funeral, there's a chase.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that happened before the funeral. The funeral was the culmination of quite a few things. Zach was one of those people that he just needed a little bit of runway, and then once he got momentum, things took off. Foreshadowing his future career.
Yeah, I was about to say, was that a nod to the Air Force?
Yeah, he's a fighter pilot now, which should frighten all of us. So he
can pee on the roof of your car from the sky, folks.
Probably has.
I was inverted.
Probably he's done much.
Yeah.
Probably done much worse.
So he once this beloved house comrade known as Trevor Nuts Petey falls from the tree and breathes his last, Zach immediately takes that as an opportunity to begin legitimately getting upset for this comrade that is now, of course, he was a part of our family, and creates this extremely large thing of this wasn't a prank, this was an assassination, and begins like a full-on investigation, starts planning out like multiple steps of like bringing people into the house to interrogate about it, like putting together alibis and like timetables, like writing down where people were at different times, who they're saying they're with, and then cross-referencing. And it legitimately took a lot of time and effort. Like this was Zach's job for like a week. And all it did for us was we just poured gas, you know, we just kept putting oil on the fire, which was kind of my job.
Okay, I got it recording again.
Somebody would return to the scene of the crime.
Right.
And we ended up, I forgot who we used on the campus police, but basically running some license plates, which the campus police shouldn't legally do. But
well, let me interject real quick, just to kind of give you another point of view on that.
Wow.
I'm doing homework in my room one day, and there's a pounding on my door. Preach busts in. He's like, "Did you saran wrap a freaking squirrel to my windshield or whatever?" I mean, he's like going off, and that was a little bit after all this. And so I was like, "No, why would I put a squirrel on your windshield?" And I started thinking, I'm like, did somebody dig up the squirrel that they buried over at the place the other day? But before that, we'd heard that, you know, it's like, oh, somebody killed that squirrel at the Hall of Justice. They're out for blood, you know. And I remember Hobroch and I were talking, where I was like, dude, we don't want to flare all that up again. Like the pranks, like it's branched into all these side wars by now. We don't want to like get into a head-on-head with these guys. And so then I see John Gross, like right after that, he's like, I think they think it's us. It's like, I don't know who it is, but we didn't do it. And Patrick was being delightfully mum about all of it right about that time.
Well, Patrick was hanging out in our house as we were trying to figure out who this son of a bitch is.
Yep.
And is
legitimately like holding bright lights in people's faces.
And he's just sitting there watching all of this. Did a very fantastic job, I'd say, of keeping his cool during all of it.
Yeah, my job is basically just sit there and be quiet like you usually do, and just listen to what they're saying and try to figure out, is this real? Oh gosh, it is real. Just after sit there, Patrick.
So after the funeral, somehow we got a false lead.
We've got to get
that
to
it was Preach.
So what I heard what happened with Preach was that so I know what I did was that I, like, late one night, bored to death. I was roommates with Tevin, and Tevin wasn't home that weekend. So like at 2 a.m. I said, I'm bored. I'm going to go buy toilet paper from Walmart. I'm going to their house. I'm just going to toilet paper it. And went to bed and woke up at like 3 p.m. the next day and said, what is going on? Like, I slept hard, and said, oh, what have I done? And so from there, I just said, lay low. Don't go over for maybe a week. And then I came over and said, oh, okay, it's real. And so somewhere, like, it was 3 weeks. And somewhere in those 3 weeks, I told Preach. And he was the only person I told, which, gosh, what a poor decision to tell anybody. Why tell Preach? And so from what I heard later was that basically Preach came over one time and got duct taped to a chair. It was interrogated with like a lamp by Zach and saying, like, did you do this? Who did this? And Preach, I imagine, tried to not say anything, but realized at some point, I'm not going anywhere if I'm duct taped to this chair. Like, I have to say something to get out of here. And he told.
All right, I've got to interject for a second. I need to be understood. Like, when Zach gets really excited about stuff, like this legitimately, like, we blurred where it's like, this is a joke, to where like this became a thing. Like, it became real. Like, Trevor Nuts Petey was what he became known as, T-Petey, became a real person that we were like legitimately upset about. Like, it wasn't a bit so much that like we like the illusion got blurred and it got weird real fast. Like, it was a real thing. And that's where the funeral came from, where like we all legitimately were in suits and like there was, you know, flowers and candles and a 21 airsoft gun salute. There was a legitimate 10-minute long eulogy that Zach gave, which was the most absurd thing that I'd ever heard in my life. And we buried him, you know, and, you know, everybody, you know, said our piece and respected it, and, you know, and then set out to, you know, vow revenge. And so that was the context for the weird that came out of this. Like every once in a while I'd be like, we're doing this for a mediocre toilet papering job, right? No, we're doing this about a murder. Got it. Okay.
Well, I gotta give Patrick credit, because I mentioned earlier in this episode, I met Patrick as a preview student, and the first thing I had, so Patrick was like super quiet and barely spoke to us and kind of went on his way. So at the end of the night, he was the last person we as preview students would have expected to have stolen every mattress out of every bed in that hall of Gettys and thrown them in the community bathroom. And I was like, dude, this guy's an animal. And so then we, you know, fast forward 2 years, we're roommates and all that. He was playing very mum during this whole thing. And I just remember that John and Josh kept getting increasingly nervous. And it's just like, dude, they're like, these guys think it's us. It's going to re-escalate into a brand. Oh, is that the funeral picture?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah. We studied all of those pictures too, to see, because we knew that whoever did it would be there.
Yeah.
So it was about 3 weeks after this that, you know, we had basically landed on it. It was Preach who'd done it. And he is going to pay for it. So what we ended up doing was exhuming the now 3-week buried dead squirrel, saran wrapped them to Preach's windshield, and then covered the rest of his car in peanut butter.
I believe there was Vaseline under the door handles as well.
Honestly, did not even know whose car that was until right now.
Really?
Yeah, had no clue. I was like, was that
Officer
Patrick?
Helped us run the license plates and find it.
Wow. He
drop
thought
a dime, Todd.
Hey, can you bleep out Officer Jackson's name there?
Yeah,
That's the dolphin deep there. Yeah,
there's a dolphin.
I'm just Mitch.
That is incredible.
The
Well, like,
limitations
so you
were
know
way past it.
they say like the truth is always this side, and then somewhere in the middle. Because like my perspective had always been that, because Patrick hung out with both our groups, I thought Patrick played it, which he kind of did, to where it was like, it would look like Preach did it, and then it would look like y'all attacked his car or something like that, which, you know, not too far from the truth. I just thought Patrick was like, you know what, I'm just going to pit these two groups against each other and watch it unfold.
I think Patrick just stumbled into that amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I'd only come over a couple times before then. Maybe like twice, maybe 3 times. So I knew where it was. And I was familiar with it. I was familiar enough with most of the guys, but to the point where I knew I could get away with this. That, you know, no one would find me. No one would try to get me back or anything, I thought. So that's how that went. Basically, was just me knowing enough about where they were living, saying, "Yeah, I'll go with these guys. I've met Travis and Zach before, and Tim. Like, why not?"
Up until this day, I thought it was a grand plan to frame, Preach, and pit 2 house groups against each other. I didn't realize it was because you were just bored on a Friday night.
Oh, that was exactly it. Yeah. So I had no clue what to do. I was like, yeah, why not? Like, I can't fall asleep. What am I going to do? Go TP someone's house.
Let's start a war. let's do it.
Yeah. So what happened after you put it on Preacher's car?
He thought I did it for a second. He comes into my room. Well, he didn't think I did it, but he thought I knew who did it. And I was like, dude, I don't even have half the story of what this whole squirrel thing is everyone's talking about. And so I'm sitting there super confused. He's like, I had to spend all my gas money for going home on cleaning my car and getting the smell out and all this. And I was like, here's $20 for gas. Merry Christmas. You know, like, well, I was like, if I hear anything, I'll let you know. And it wasn't, I don't remember how long it took. I think it was like a week or 2 later before we finally heard the details come in. But I just know Hobroch was relieved because he really thought it was about to be just an all-out World War V between the two of us.
He was at the top of our list as well. It
Yeah,
was kind of between those two,
and everybody was at the top of his.
Yeah, we had again the whiteboard. We had a whiteboard list of suspects that were ranked and were based on alibis and stories and interviews were being adjusted daily, where the ranking and most likely scenario was.
I know at some point T-Petey ended up on my car. And I don't know if Preach maybe just found out, like, maybe hearing all this now, I never knew it ended up on Preach's car. Oh, we have a guest.
I love what we've pieced together.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, did y'all come back and get the scroll, or did Preach just say, Patrick, this was you, and put it back on my car?
That would seem like the thing that makes the most sense. However, Preach left that next day because I gave him gas money to get out of town because he was like blowing all his immediate pay on getting it clean. So
Only made him look more guilty, by the way.
Yeah, well, it sounds like something John and Josh would have done as retribution in his place. However, I think they were gone too. I don't know. And it wasn't me because I'd be like, heck yeah, I did it. But no, I don't have a clue. So that mystery remains a mystery after a decade. So kind of like easing out of the tragedy of Trevor. So UMHB based questions from when y'all were there. What is like a tradition or something? I mean, obviously y'all were involved with Campus Boys. What's something else that you were like your favorite thing you were involved in? And then what's something you wish you'd taken more part in?
I played a ton of Ultimate Frisbee while I was there. I played with the club team. Actually, I guess helped start the club team. I later played again at Baylor, and it was just like it was fun to watch them because Mary Hardin had been like ahead of their curve. So I played a lot of Ultimate. We played a lot of Ultimate in the evenings. I broke the quarterback's nose with the back of my head doing that. And that's for a while. The football players weren't allowed to play Ultimate Frisbee anymore because they were afraid they were going to get hurt, which is pretty great. I don't know what I wish I'd gotten involved in. I mean, there was a lot going on campus. Oh, you know what? Getting married in your 20s. I wish that I had taken part in that trend.
No, you don't.
Not because I think it's a particularly good idea, but it just seems like I really missed out on belonging, you know?
Yeah,
that was the thing to do.
Did you even go to UMHB?
Right.
Did we lose Patrick?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay, cool.
He's just getting naked. There he is.
Yeah.
That's a trend that I wish that I hadn't joined. So, you know, that's you're welcome, Dustin. Yeah, that one didn't go great for me, which is coming full circle why I ended with 4 hours left in my degree. Let's see what I was glad that I took part in. So this is a very inside thing, but freshman year we had a freaking ton of fun with Chris Trickett. He was the big dad, and he had a game that we got super into that we would play for hours on end called Silent Football, which was an absurd game. But basically, the game was just about trying to make each other laugh. But the whole game was that you're not allowed to laugh. And we would play this game for literally hours at a time in the middle of the quad. And we would, especially because Trickett would like completely sell out for the game. Like he would go all in and make it super serious and super intense. Like, and then he would be really funny. Those were like some of the funnest things to be a part of. That, and you know, going to Austin for concerts and things like that on the regular. We always would say like something that is nobody believes me when I tell them stories about our college hijinks and shenanigans. We did all of this completely sober. None of us were drinkers at all. And like, we did stupid drunk things all the way sober. Like that was just what we did. And largely is because there was nothing going on in town. You know, I grew up in College Station where everybody has a million things to do. And so nobody comes up with fun things to do because everything's made for you. In Belton, there's a lake and you can leave town if you want to go do something. So we would come up with fun stuff to do and we would just entertain ourselves. The very first prank I remember doing was at Echo Base. What was it? Echo Base 2? Echo Base 3? Was the bomb thing that we like compressed in a soda can for the people that lived below us, and we like lowered it down with a string until it exploded in front of their door. And that was because the people below us were getting it. I mean, we did stuff that we had no business doing. You know, we created napalm and committed a felony on accident. Because Zach was bored one night because his girlfriend wouldn't call him back. And so, you know, he was bored and looked up online how to make napalm and said, Tim, I figured out how to make napalm. And so I texted shenanigans and everybody came running and we just figured out, okay, we've got napalm. So what are we going to do with it? So we just
smelled like gasoline for 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah. And then went to church the next day and we're like, what did we do? Yeah. Like, so that was, I mean, the best stuff was stuff that we just came up with because we had nothing there for us to do. So
that's why when people look at their, oh, you're undergrad, man. It was like it's like small and strict. There was nothing to do. It sounds boring. I'm like, no, you make it your own. It's you get out of it what you put into it.
100%.
Patrick, you were talking about blowing up the can. You remember the was it the 3-liter dry ice bomb rolling down the Belton Dam or whatever it was under that car?
Oh gosh, yes. So our old group were making, was it Hobroch working for university or something, got a hold of some dried ice from some event and just put some bottles together and we started blowing them up and stuff. And we got like the whole group together beside Lake Belton and blew a big one up and it just went, it was just loud. It was huge so far. It was the biggest one yet. And when it went off, we all just kind of stood there in shock, like, wow. Everyone just stood there for about 15 seconds. And then a cop car drove past with its lights on, just speeding right past us. But we were below the dam. So it drives past above us and doesn't see us at all. And I was the first person to wake up and kind of go, guys, that was meant for us. Like, we need to get out of here. I went like running up to everyone saying, shaking them, going, we need to leave now. And slowly everyone kind of got out of their mental state. I remember Carlton was the first one going, okay, Patrick's got a point. We should probably get packed up and leave and go back. But yeah, that was wicked.
I think John, is that the same one John said went under somebody's car before it went off? Like there was one I remember at some point when it rolled under somebody's car and then went off. It caused like a huge thing, but
yeah, he probably would roll under someone else's car thinking this could be destructive.
Todd, what was something you were always a part of that you were glad you were?
Oh gosh. It just seemed like there was always so much going on. And kind of like what Tim said, it wasn't because there was stuff to do at Belton, because there wasn't. There was no like, entertainment scene or anything like that. We'd have to trek 45 minutes to Austin to see a show or something like that. But between that, playing in a handful of bands during my time there, BSM stuff seemed like there was always something BSM had going on every weekend. So between that on one end of the spectrum and like getting in trouble on the other end of the spectrum, or creating it or finding it or however you look at it, it seemed like there was never really a dull moment. So, the 5 years that I look back on there were just jam packed full of stuff. Plenty of fond memories, weekend trips. Just a lot of stuff that's honestly, a lot of I haven't really revisited in my memory up until today. Stuff that you guys telling stories reminds me of something that I haven't thought about in probably 13 or 14 years, which is pretty wild.
That's honestly, hearing you say this, kind of what we were hoping for this podcast. Get some reunions together, dig up some stuff, hopefully all good, and make it work.
Dig up some stuff. I see what you did there.
Yeah. Oh, there. Yeah.
Did y'all want to talk some more about Tim's divorce or my inability to find spouses?
Does that one need to be clipped out or what?
Oh no. That's a vital part of how things went.
Yeah, that's true.
That was the C4 that eventually blew up the hall at some, you know.
Well, okay, you mentioned the hall, and I know we don't have a whole ton of time left. I meant to ask earlier, who named it the Hall of Justice? Like, who brought?
Well, that was Travis. Travis was trying to come up with a name, and he had some sort of Facebook event, I think, made for, like, come and see our house, and he couldn't think of anything to put, and so he just made some kind of thing on paint program of Hall of Justice circle, and just put everyone's face and a name to it, and that was that. That's how the name stuck. And then I made bored one night for like 2 hours on the computer. I make some kind of use paint program and take in some characters from DC Comics and copy paste them in and change things like Dustin was in the Marines, so I replaced the Superman logo with USMC Marines logo or something like that. And so slowly I put in like 6 different characters and just named them like, yeah, this is that person, this is that person. So I think from there it really stuck because they knew about it and everyone saw that.
I vaguely remember that. Just like I vividly remember the house party, but I vaguely remember you making that picture. Yeah,
we did name all of our places that we lived. So the Green Dragon was the apartment, which was a Lord of the Rings reference, and then Echo Base 1 and 2 were the cold rooms that we had in McLean, because they was
our apartment.
Huh?
2 was our apartment when Zach and Trav moved in with me.
Yeah.
Right.
Echo Base 1, Echo Base 2.
Yep.
Whose apartment did I come to when I think I had like stadium leveled the couches or something like that?
Echo Base 2.
That was okay. That was your place. Because all I remember is I think it was our friend Renee showed up and everyone sang her name, but my back was turned, and so I turned around. I was like, "What is everyone like?" I didn't know what was going on half the time.
Yeah, so, Zach, I think, spent an entire summer building those risers for the couches.
Zach's a guy that commits, man. He finds a bit and he just leans into it.
Zach became a Jedi. Remember
that? Yes. Can I tell that story real fast?
You have to now.
Okay. So one of Zach and Travis's favorite things to do was to shoot each other when they were unaware with the airsoft pistols. And so and Zach, as we've mentioned a handful of times, was always not naked, but the most naked. So he was hanging out in basketball shorts, as he was like to do. And Travis popped him with the airsoft gun. And Zach was just fed up with it at this point because he just kept getting stung. And he ran into Dustin's room and came out with the katana, a wooden katana. Now, Dustin, was this yours or Ace's? I assumed it was yours.
It's mine.
Okay, so a wooden katana. And he was like, threatening Travis with the katana. And Travis just kept shooting him. And because he knew that he wasn't going to actually attack him with the katana. So he just kept getting popped with the things over and over. And then Zach was like, hey, I got an idea. Let me see if I can get this Jedi style. And so he was like, okay, I'm ready. And he would get, shot 3 times in a row. And he would he's like, ow, ow, ow. Right. And a couple of times this happened. And I'm sitting there watching this whole thing unfold. And I was like, Zach, you know why this isn't working? He goes, why? I said, because you're using your eyes, man. You got to go blindfolded and use the force. And he's like, you're absolutely right. So he goes and gets a t-shirt and covers his head with it. And I swear to God, the first 3, he actually blocked. And then there was silence. And he pulls it off and he goes, I'm a Jedi! And just starts running out of the apartment, running through the apartments, just screaming that over and over and over. I'm an effing Jedi. I'm an effing Jedi. I'm an effing Jedi. And from that point on, Zach was a Jedi.
I mean, I think we all knew the Force was strong with him, but I've never heard that.
It's true.
Now I imagine him with an F-35.
Yeah.
America. All right. So Last question I have on my little list here. Speaking of incredible talents of sorts. Oh, that was a terrible segue. Anyway, athletics. Favorite sports-based memory you have from UMHB?
Getting banned from football games on the couch crew.
I didn't even pull that off. What'd you do?
I mean, we were not allowed to go. They told us to stop going because we were harassing people and whatnot.
Oh, you mean you specifically, or the whole?
The group as a whole, but I remember it was the when we printed off a picture of the quarterback's girlfriend in like a giant mosaic, and we were gonna hold it up in the end zone whenever they were close, and that's what got us banned.
Part of me wonders why they just like disbanded the entire group in 2012. But then there's other times where I'm like, how did we make it that far?
Yeah, it was unacceptable what we did. We were those guys. Like we were the Texas Tech of D3.
It's crazy, y'all. I will tell you, because after y'all left, it took about 2 years, and especially when Tinda graduated and I kind of took over. The freshmen and sophomores who came in at the end thought we were just the meanest and most vile people in the world. But really, compared to what it was when I was a freshman, it really wasn't. Like, I think the peak of meanness was when Dawson Barksdale was running it. But really, I mean, it kind of just unfolded over time. It's like, oh, that's offensive.
They're soft. They got soft.
Like when you're winning a game by 60, you got to make it more entertaining.
Yeah, and the other's expense is the natural place to do that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I would have played more Halo. It's probably all sports I played.
I think intramural sports was the most exciting set of sports-related activities at Mary Hardin. We almost got into a fight one night at an intramural game, and that was kind of like par for the course because we were competitive in important in one sport, and so you had to have that like other kind of outlet. So, Patrick became a squirrel murderer, and others of us almost got invited to intramural games and had to invent cuss words that we could say at intramural games. So, yeah, I think that was a lot of fun.
We did end up inventing a sport by the name of scooter jousting. My sophomore year.
Very banned.
Junior year.
That got banned my freshman year, so that would have been 06, 07.
So we're sophomore year got banned because I had just joined it when it got banned. I was there for like a week.
I think that was
this would have been like fall 05, something like that.
Stewart. That was another Stewart, Todd.
That was our old apartment, and Jimmy, it was another
Andy Wayland.
We were super bored one night. We had these scooters, and we found these carpet tubes, like from rolls of carpet, super thick cardboard that are just big enough to fit your whole arm in, like all the way up to the shoulder. And somehow we got the idea of jousting with these in the parking lot over by Davis. And you would run it as fast as you possibly could. And I mean, people had like just these massive hematomas, like just entire bicep. Like, I don't know how entire shoulders were not dislocated completely during this, but it became a thing. And from that one night, there became like just multiple iterations of that. And it went on for a handful of weeks, I think, before
there were tournaments. And there was rules with, because there was like the extendo like lightsaber things. So like once you got knocked off, it then turned into the sword fight, and there was like a point-based system. Yeah.
Body strikes, head strikes, all of it. Yeah.
What was really cool is when you were just passing by and didn't know one was about to happen, just see two people go for it. It's like, oh, I'll clear the way, but this is happening right now. Nobody's safe.
I believe it got banned because somebody broke their sternum.
That was the main reason I never did it, because I recognized this looks like a great way to break your arm. Like way to break.
Somebody did break something.
It didn't happen sooner, honestly.
It was we're making contact with each other's chests trying to make them off, like knock them off. Like outside of the arm that you're slamming into somebody's chest with a carpet tube.
Awesome. Well, guys, I think we're about to get kicked off for the second time because, again, I'm cheap. But I want to say that on my behalf and Tyler's, even though he couldn't be here for the whole interview, this is the kind of stuff that's exactly what we're aiming for with this podcast. Good reunions, good stories, all that. personal note, it's just cool to do this because it's good to see all of y'all again. And it's not often you get to connect with as many people at once from an era. So it's, for me, it's just really cool to get to do that. And the group chat setting this thing up has been quite fun to keep track of. Tyler was confused out of his mind. He's like, I don't know these dudes, but I guess you're reading this whole conversation. I'm like, yep, I got you. So guys, I appreciate all of you, and it's good to see all of you again.
Thanks
Good to see you
for
too.
having us.
Thanks for doing
Yeah.
it.
Good
It's
to see everybody.
a old thing to start a Facebook message thread with this group. We had some epic discussions. I mean, before like group texting was even a thing,
Yep.
but just like the arguments about, like who would win in a fight, Peter Pan or Jesus Christ himself.
No.
Like,
Peter Pan or Santa? Peter Pan or Santa?
Or what
That
about
That was
Luke
like
Skywalker
400
and Wolverine?
comments deep.
Luke Skywalker versus Wolverine?
Yep.
Yeah.
Organized. Well, all right. That was easy. I'm all around back inside because like I'm seriously starting to melt. This garage is not a great recording studio.
And I use that as our outro. That was easy. I'm out.
Okay. Perfect. All right. I'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Folks, that was the unintended end of this episode. Tune in next time for Purple Gold and Getting Old.
The podcast is over and HSU still sucks.